Hey everybody, I'm Nico.
And I'm TK.
And that makes this X's for Show / X's for Podcast, your weekly response to all things comic media and more. Man, do we have fun. And it's a spooky day. It's Halloween.
It's Halloween, and we got spooky books to talk about.
Sure do. And that's one of the exciting things about what Marvel and DC do over the years. They love to make these sort of like magic periods of seasonal offerings, and over the years we've really seen these magical seasons of seasonal offerings go down and go down and go down. I feel like there was a period of time where every book at Marvel would either have like a spooky vibe or a Halloween vibe, and like when you go back and you do classic rereads, and you're reading like 9 issues of somebody fighting their worst nemesis in space, and then all of a sudden they come home and it's Christmas for no reason, and then the next issue is horror again. It's always one of those things that feels a little jarring, especially in superhero narrative comics. But I feel like Halloween is one that is just like less of a sales point and more of a like, okay, this isn't so disruptive in superhero books.
I don't know. I think it's equally disruptive, but I like it. I always think it's fun. Christmas feels like it has some more requirement and weight to it in order to make it valid and make it worthwhile to have done a Christmas issue. Halloween, we can just have fun, I think. And I wish there, especially at Marvel this year, I wish there were a little more of that.
Yeah, it didn't feel like there was a lot of fun. And even then some of the DC offerings really didn't do it like any more fun, which is a little unusual. I feel like DC has been a little bit more the fun house between the two lately. So it's a little surprising. But we have quite the assortment of books that we're going to be looking at today. I would almost dare say too many, but there's never such a thing as too many comic books. As long as you've got the comics, you got the fun. So we're going to be covering, oh my God, what a list. We're going to be covering Crypt of Shadows, House of Harkness, Avengers Academy from Marvel Voices, Werewolf by Night, I Know What You Did Last Crisis, DC Horror Presents, Creature Commandos, and Batman Full Moon.
Yeah.
And then, whatever else comes up that's a little spooky. Speaking of spooky, I do think one of the things that's a little shocking is just on the subject of, cycling calendars for a moment. You've been really engaged and really invested in this Ultimate Universe relaunch. And I know they just, they're talking about 1 year in. Mm-hmm. And I know we covered a little bit of that last week when we talked about post NYCC. But, this 1 year in thing is coming out a little bit more.
Couldn't get that together a couple weeks earlier, so it could be a big NYCC announcement. Instead, we just got it randomly a couple weeks later. Okay, I don't know. I did decide to sort of invest my energy and my rooting for comicsness in Ultimates, because I think there's a lot of good there. I think there's a lot of fun there. But I remain in that I don't get what Marvel's doing space where, I think it's really cool to do a bunch of books that are passing in real time and every month is a month forward for them. And you give this 2-year countdown, and it feels like pulling that off in the first place, and getting to a year and having a 1 year in moment when you only have 12 left. That's it. You only get 12 months. So it feels like getting 12 months in could be like, again, worthwhile for PR purposes. Like I always complain about Marvel PR. This seems like a great opportunity. It seems like it ought to be one. And instead it's just like, oh, by the way, we also have another one shot.
It feels a little bit like they weren't sure that they wanted to commit all the way to the idea. And so they kind of waited a little bit, waited to see what happened. I think on the subject of Halloween, knowing that Wolverine is the Winter Soldier, it is a little bit dressing up your one character as another one. And that's a little rough for me. I don't necessarily feel like we need the illusionistness, but I don't know. I think a lot of stuff coming up, end of the year. There's always like a mad rush to kind of like finish doing the books and get everything out. So we're going to kind of see what happens, but it could be good.
It definitely could be. The content still could be good. I just, I don't know what Marvel is doing with the publishing of it and what they want to happen with this other universe. What's going to happen in another year? Is this like the calm before a really big storm? Are we going to do another crossover event? I have no idea. I hope to know more.
Well, I think we're going to get there. I think we'll have at least some sort of conclusive answer on what they're doing with this universe. And it's so funny because I'm just like so embarrassed that I was so convinced that Avengers Twilight was going to be something important or interesting. And it just sort of wound up being kind of just like any little mini series. And like, I was convinced that they were going to do something exciting and dramatic with it, but I guess they were just flavor testing if people were interested in alternate takes on these characters from darker vantage points by the time it finally came out.
Yeah, and I wish they had a little more commitment to something like an Elseworlds so that we could, because this kind of applies to House of Harkness too, which I thought was all kinds of fun, but is just like it's a completely alternate universe. It's a totally different world. And it's cool to tell stories there and do your thing. But like the Zdarsky Twilight universe, as cool as the story is, as excited as I am about it, I can't really see... The only thing I can see is references to it in a future Secret War of some kind.
I was really possibly surprised that it was so AU, with Agatha All Along having just ended, and we've got the Agatha just ended, and I don't know, I feel like with everything going on, there could have been a little bit more room to do something exciting about Agatha, about Scarlet Witch, maybe even involve Doctor Strange, but House of Harkness is maybe a little too out of nowhere. I have a really good time with it, but I can sort of see where like Gods was creating all new characters to do this sort of thing, and then House of Harkness is using all existing characters to do this sort of thing. Excuse me, and it's just coming out really interestingly.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a fun book. I enjoyed it a lot as well, but it's similar to you. It was not what I was expecting. And then the other big thing is like, we have a cool magic school. Why couldn't Preeti Chibber be writing a Strange Academy book? A lot of these situations are Strange Academy situations. And between the art and the very like Sweet Valley High take on everything, like, it is fun for a lark, and I had fun reading it. This was one where I'd been letting it stack up, so I was excited to just read all 10 at once. And I mean, it was fun and great art, really gorgeous art. Love the stylistic takes on all the characters. It's fun to imagine what all of the various adult magic users we know might be like if they all went to high school together. But it is kind of a rote formula. Like, what if we put everybody, it's a little bit Riverdale. And it's not that I can't have fun with it. It's just, I don't know how we're experiencing it in the wider scope of Marvel stuff.
And the thing I kept comparing it to was Wicked.
Like
literally, cool girl at the school who owns the school, weird girl from the wrong side of the tracks with magic. And it's also tough because, like, with House of Harkness, I guess because Agatha All Along and WandaVision are both horror shows wrapped up in tropes, I wasn't expecting like a slice of life romance book.
Yeah.
It was a little almost like underwhelming and kind of, I don't want to say boring, but like, while I enjoyed it, I'm glad I read it, would have been fine paying for it even, like in a more direct way. I probably thought I'd be getting something different.
I maybe might have even have preferred to buy it as a manga.
Yeah, I think that would be a really great way to look at it too, because one of the things that I kept comparing it to was where when Peach Momoko comes on and says this is non-Western comics in a unique lens, it's transformative. It builds on what we know. But this felt a little bit more like they were told you can either be exciting as an Infinite book, or you can be exciting in the ways you're drawing on like manga Magical Girl School, but you can't really do both in any one issue. So I don't know. I'm giving the whole thing a B plus as a concept, but I feel like my individual reads are a little bit more like a C.
Yeah, that tracks to me. And I give it really high grades for the art, the stylization, the heart. It is a really sweet, like, high school romance slice of life book. It's very fun. And I like when Marvel leans into sort of cultures and aesthetics that are enthusiastic about worlds and properties and stuff. Like, this feels very cozy game dating simulator. Like, I can get the person who would really go for this book and for a whole world that was like this book. And I really appreciate that. I just sort of don't know, in the face of Agatha all along and like everything else going on in the comics and in the MCU, I just don't quite get what the thinking was here and what will be done with it after.
Yeah, that's something where even when we talk about DC having endless love for its minor pocket universes, I don't know that they all come up with quite the same expediency and readiness. And when I compare this to something like the Trinity special from the Wonder Woman backups, that even when that's not exactly canon, those are meant to be iterative of their canonical selves, where this is not. This is meant to be teen Scarlet Witch, teen Doctor Strange, teen Agatha, all of them going to school with, like, and there's stuff that I love, like Professor Wong being Doctor Strange's teacher, cool. Professor Malekith, like, there were some choices here where just like, and he's not even like a bad guy. He's not at all Malekith. He's just a dude with the dragnet face paint. So there's like nothing particularly Malekith about it. Whereas at least Doctor Strange is kind of like cocky and better than you. At least Wanda is nervous and eager to show herself. But Malekith is just like, I'm a nice professor.
Yeah, it's a lot of like name dropping and like, oh, don't worry, we remembered that this person is part of the magical community in Marvel Comics.
And then sometimes they were just so eager to show you that they remembered that they kind of forgot to give the person a personality.
Yeah.
And this is something that I definitely felt maybe way more with the other Unlimited comic we're going to talk about, where we really need to get to a point where, like, and I'm probably going to use this book as an okay example of it, but something I'm really struggling with is, like, as a queer man of, protected class cultures like Latino culture, and like, I'm not saying that like all Greek people need to be united under protecting ourselves from, bad diners or something, but like, there is something about being Greek where occasionally you do sort of feel like, oh, you're Greek, like, oh, say Opa, and you just would be like, okay, oh my God, you're Italian, make me a meatball, like, like, it's there are things, right? So I do often appreciate when the goal is show people of a certain group being that group, whether it's my queerness, my Latino-ness, whether it's the sort of weird things that like only Greek people can kind of share when we scream it "hey" at each other. Like, there's things, right? What I really need comics to agree on is where the line lives in nothing fucking happens in an issue. Because when I think about classic New Mutants and I think about, like, Shan and Danny would get these moments, 3 pages, and it would be in this issue that, they just fought a fucking Sentinel. It ended with one of them being kidnapped by the Sentinel. Then they defeated the Sentinel. Everything was fine within 4 pages of the next issue. I'm not giving them a hard time. But there was still something happening where I felt the action was bound. There was a binding agent. And so often I'm finding in what I'm going to refer to as celebrations of unique personal identity, specifically queer ones, because those are the only ones that I feel super uniquely entitled to comment on. See my queer comic, Kid Riot, hey, what's up? I feel a bit like we've given up on something happening every issue, and sometimes it's just letting people be protected classes at each other.
I hear what you're saying, and this is one of those things where like I wasn't viewing it from that lens, and now it's a bit of like a good sucker punch because it's totally accurate. But it does kind of color. I mean, and you know, I feel this is. I mean, we're talking about Avengers Academy at this point.
I mean, I am talking about both, but unfortunately, I am directing a bit more of this at Avengers Academy, where
because for me, House of Harkness plays a little bit more, like I said, like Riverdale. So like stuff doesn't happen, but in a very serialized television show type of way.
Yeah, it's You Know You Love Me, XOXO, Gossip Sorceress.
Yes, where Avengers Academy feels a little bit more like a comic. Like, I mean, it feels like it has more in common with comics where nothing happens, and is itself a comic where nothing happens a lot of the time. And it's not a lot of the time, but there is a sort of treading water thing where I don't know, it's a tough line to walk between making sure as a queer creator that you give and as any kind of minority creator that you give spotlight to minority identity, and then getting lost in that a little bit such that the book can't really do what it's setting out to do.
I really feel that very deeply, because part of my frustration is like I mentioned New Mutants, and I know I bring it up a million times, but like there weren't a lot of overtly sexual, non-romantic stories growing up for us to look to other than Slumber Party, because like Slumber Party is non-romantic. It's like literally Beto is kind of like, yeah, where I'm from, dudes are naked all the time. What do you mean you're shy about being naked in front of me? Don't you guys get naked to swim? Like, and Cannonball's like, and like it's this moment of growing and realizing, and it's something that many of us had in our upbringing, that first moment, whether you're straight, you're queer, whatever, where you have this opportunity to engage with a person that you could possibly be interested in engaging with. And I read every page of Avengers Academy from issue 0 to the one that dropped today. I think it was 19. And I know that we're focusing on the last 4 or so that are particularly spooky, but early on, there's a lot of stuff where like Justin is not quite clearly the main character at times, so he gets main character syndromed, but then they don't give him a personality, you know. And so there's this thing with him and Cap where like they share a room. Sometimes they literally will sleep basically naked, just in like underwear together. Like it's literally them and Andrew Christian and nothing else in that bed, and they're laying in each other's laps, and it's meant to be that they're interested in each other. It's this friendship. It's this something that's deeper than just friends, but they're not quite a relationship. And part of what throws me off about that, because I need it and I want it, is that those things happen between the moments of life. I don't just exist to put my lap under someone I find sexy. Like, the things that happen to me in my day that make me need that time in my bed are just as necessary to the story for me as needing the time in my bed. And so Anthony Oliveira is writing beautiful queer wish fulfillment in a way that I long to feel fulfilled. But I really need fulfillment to involve the word full. I need it to have the breadth of experience that creates the queer identity. I know that we don't have enough of that. So that's why he's doing it. He's making sure we get it. But I am so much more than my moments of realization. I am my moments of confidence, and I am my moments of walking through life. And what I am missing in this Infinity comic, which sometimes seems to take me longer to read than a 22-page book, is the binding agents of life that make these coming of age moments valuable. Don't just give me the bridge. I need the sidewalk that leads to it.
And I think for me, the particular arc that we're talking about also got really lost in some Shakespearean soliloquizing from Empath, which like we all think is funny.
I did it a thousand
sorry.
times.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
In my notes, it's in my notes over and over again. Empath, and I got to the point where I just started doing strike through.
Marius, I say Marius a lot. But yeah, Emplate, thank you. And like that's who the character is. That's how we got him in Generation X. Anthony Oliveira loves to remind you that he has read all of the books that you like, little queer boy. And I appreciate that because a lot of times I do feel like I'm reading something by somebody who absolutely has not read anything else, doesn't care, maybe is actively trying to disrespect or like push aside something that another creator created. So like I always appreciate a guy who comes with references, but like Hickman loved Generation X, and so we got more Generation X in House of X, Powers of 10, and then when X-Men started, Hickman was really instrumental in putting Sync in the position that he was in to be a really big X-Man during X-Men. But they weren't doing so much like referencing single panels from issue 52 of Generation X, or like kind of obscure moments to be like, see, I read literally everything. And again, like sometimes that can be cute, but a lot of times it's like, okay, like now it's just Sheila re-explaining her already pretty limited origin story that isn't complicated anyway and doesn't necessarily need to be rehashed. I really appreciate that you read it. I love that. But like I also trust you. So it's fine. Like you can just write the character and it'll be obvious if you kind of have that ill intention and you're not really writing true to some of that source material, or you clearly didn't read any of it. But if you have, like, a lot of times it's pretty safe to just write stuff and not need to do a lot of references, particularly when they're not like, you need to go back and read this to get it. And so we got a lot from Emplate that was kind of more in that vein and very much in the like, hey, like I want to give you the Generation X vibe of the villain, where he's just constantly doing these dramatic monologues. And it's cute for one issue for sure, especially with the great artwork and how it flows through an Infinite Scroll. But it's really, we get it for 2 or 3, and it just winds up being so much discussion of absolutely nothing. Of ultimately the fact that he just has taken another victim to eat, which is like, again, we already know that that's what he does. So like we could have gotten to that point pretty quickly. And there's some neat stuff in there about how he maybe also wants a friend, but like I think we could have gotten to all of it in less than half the time and maybe done some more stuff with the other characters.
Especially because, and this is one of those things that's like always dicey to say as a queer person who, front facing until you hear me open my mouth and the purses fall out. I look masculine. I have so much white in me. I have so much passing privilege. I do sometimes think that as minorities, we overexplore the quality of people who need to be forgiven, and I don't give a shit about the little boy that is Marius, because Emplate is a sociopathic homicidal maniac who enjoys executing and extinguishing members of his own race. He literally gets off and enjoys on sucking the life out of people and watching the life drain from their eyes. He enjoys eating people on a functional level such that he feels their death inside of him constantly and mocks them with it. I don't care about him as a real person. I don't care about the little boy. And this is what we get into sometimes, where Every one of us makes bad choices. I've made so many bad choices today. I've stopped keeping track. And I would like to be judged by my better angels, not my angriest demons. But characters like Emplate exist to be their angriest demons and nothing else. So, Justin, like one of the hottest characters in Kid Juggernaut, by the way, a dream of mine, TK, to write, a Kid Juggernaut character, to get to do J2, to get to do Zane Yama.
We wanted a different one, but yes.
Again, a giant, super muscular, half Asian, half Juggernaut. That's what we wanted. It's just not how we saw it going. He is so beautiful, and it's so cool that there's an entire issue that's him going to a gay club and being like, Doctor Strange, I think I need help. And Doctor Strange is like, what do you need? And he's like, you're a doctor, right? And Doctor Strange is like, of course I'm a doctor. What do you need? And he says, I think I need to get on prep. One of the greatest things I've ever read. One of the best moments I've ever seen in comics. Like, a superhero turns to a doctor to get on prep. And the Doctor Strange goes, oh, sure, let's have a conversation about your health. And like is ready to be a good man. And it's brilliant. It's beautiful. But the fact is that those moments require me to not read this character for 4 issues now, because he got all of that time. So now it has to go to Brielle, who deserves it. But then maybe they both don't fit here. Luna is only here so Squid Kid can be the bad guy. Luna serves no other purpose. It's just so Squid Kid can be the ongoing bad guy. Like, everything I get about justify the villain being a bad guy, I get from Lizard Boy. I don't need it from the other characters. So, like, I don't know. There's a level on which I worry that in loving monsters as much as we do, and in seeing good, beautiful men in the shell of a villain like 1963 and 1964 visions of Magneto versus the brilliant man who exists now and survived the Holocaust and is a leader among a great people. In an effort to find the next Magneto, sometimes we are a little too eager to forgive people who don't forgive it, who don't deserve it. I'm never going to forgive the Shadow King. I understand that Amal Farouk is evidently a different person than the Shadow King. Okay, but now show me Amal Farouk is a good person. Don't just tell me he was a passenger, because here's the thing. If Jeffrey Dahmer was a demon and Dexter was a person, and we found out that Dexter was no longer possessed by Jeffrey Dahmer, Dexter would still be a homicidal sociopath. So, like, I'm curious.
Yeah, Emplate, it's unfortunate because Emplate was in a good place to do a kind of Apocalypse-esque villain conversion. Because the thing is, I can forgive it if 20 years go by. We really did not have a lot of Emplate stories after Generation X. We had one in Christina Strange Generation X in the late 20-teens, which was, again, it was kind of more of like a St. Croix family situation, less of that like characterization of him really being somebody who enjoys killing and more of the vampire thing. Then we go to Krakoa, where he is part of the vampire cohort, which like is something they have to reckon with because the island itself is an energy vampire. So Selene is a vampire. Like, so many people there have to feed on something to live. So what are they going to do about mutants who need that, and how can they contribute to society? And we really didn't see him much from there. All we knew was that the powers that be and the movers and shakers and the thinkers on Krakoa were trying to figure out how people who have powers that can be harmful to others could live in harmony and symbiosis with the island and with the culture. And regardless of whether or not Krakoa continued, that was kind of a perfect reset for the character, because you easily could have gone from here and done a I learned so much from Krakoa, but now I'm lost. There's all kinds of stories you could have done with this that were a little less, I am a man and like, this is my curse. But also, my mom was going to tell on me, so I gacked her. And I don't really regret that. And if my sisters try and stop me, I'll probably kill them too. There's just no way to get to that character and then enjoy them, or relate to them, or put them in this book where people are talking a lot about their feelings and their emotions. And it's also a little tough that we're doing all this and then, like, parallel to it, Brielle is having what I felt was like maybe sort of like a older person that maybe now doesn't know how young people talk about their labels anymore kind of conversation about her labels. That was maybe one of the slightly more painful things. It wasn't horrible or anything, but it was also just like, I don't know, it was very much like this conversation is going on a really long time. And we've also got Emplate soliloquizing. So like there's just so much talk, and a lot of it could have borne some action to go along with it. I think that Brielle conversation might have been a really perfect one to have Buffy style while you're fighting foot soldiers or something like that, just to give a little more dynamism. And all in all, it just leads to a book that is a little difficult to connect with at times, that has a really, and like to take it to, because we're doing Halloween books, we're doing spooky books, especially the Emplate storyline has some incredible dark art. It has some really good spooky art. It just maybe isn't, I would have rather it gone hard in the direction of a scary story and less in the direction of a gothic vampire romance.
A gothic vampire romance that sought to never actually commit to the idea of romance, because I have some really weird stuff, and I'm not putting it out here, but I'm going to say that there is a romance between Hannibal and the people he eats. And so, like, I will say that there are ways in which I'm kind of like, I'm trying to find a way to be like, yes, Twink, eat my gym sock. But like, there are ways to like disrespect the things you're eating in a sexy way. And I don't think Emplate ever comes near that. So then to have that as the comparison point for Brielle, have that self-discovery and that journey of self be the point of comparison, because it's the only other ones in these issues. Like, I feel like Brielle got a really bad shake in this story.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was also like the whole thing of she has this kiss with Sheila and then she just says, "Oh," and then suddenly the whole thing breaks down really fast, and I kind of don't get where it comes from, and then it leads to all this other stuff, including this like really long conversation that she has with Aaron, Captain America of the Rails, where she's just talking a little too paint by numbers about her sexual identity. I don't know. It just it doesn't all quite cohere. I really appreciate what Anthony Oliveira is doing. This is a balance out for all the straight white men who are just kind of writing like boring men doing boring things. It's a good balance. I'm glad that young people have books like these to read as well, that underrepresented people get books like this to represent themselves. But like, something I said the first time this ever came up for me on the show, which was way back when we did Phoenix Song Echo, minorities get to write bad stories too. Like, they get to write not the best thing ever. Not every minority story has to be of pure highest quality to have value. And it is important to be real about the critique without saying like, and therefore we shouldn't do these anymore. So I'm glad this exists, but like, it wasn't a 100% like really strong moment for me.
I would like to give the overall series a stronger grade, and it's tough because like I feel like I grew up with Anthony Oliveira, like in that there's a bunch of us, and like it's tough because like we're, if we're not in the same book, we're in the same books. You know what I mean? Like as somebody who's out there, as somebody whose books are available for sale, and like I get it, and I'm never trying to shit on somebody that kind of like came up with me and is way further. I mean, find my Marvel credit. Good luck. But like the thing that gets me is we as queer people sometimes don't feel good critiquing queer work. And I wonder about the nature of fandom identity at times. Obviously we're not going to get into it, but it's behind me. So like when I see Polygon do the 7 best adapted Neil Gaiman works, I'm like, I don't know who wrote this article, but you either wrote it 6 months too late or 6 months too soon. And there needs to be an apology tour. There needs to be these women coming forward and being like, our story was misrepresented. And like, it needs to be like 15 things that come together that we can write these articles again. Because it wasn't just 7 amazing works based in this genre. It was this one man. And we find ourselves sometimes in positions where we don't know what to do with these kinds of situations, because there's destroy artists, right? But then there's also protect artists needlessly. And I feel like if I didn't give Anthony Oliveira my best review, you are a genius, you are a brilliant voice writer, you understand page space, and you understand scrolling in an incredible way, but this ain't it. It would just be like clapping for Bruno Mars having the worldwide #1 2 weeks in a row with 2 different duets with 2 different women who are more talented than him, and not pointing that out. Yo, when he had 2 back-to-back #1s worldwide, I definitely lost my mind. He has that new one with Rosé, and it's #1 in the world. Apt. Yeah, I've heard it twice. It's had that much effect on me.
Yeah, I enjoy it, but the Bruno Mars of it all is a little tough to swallow.
Well, speaking of things that are tough to swallow, I hope Justin is a real man and calls me, because I plan on being tough for him to swallow. But anytime he's ready, I'm here. I don't know. All said and done, I'm going to give both Infinite Experiences a B+ with as low as a C-. In the mix, and not in a way to deliver disrespect, but rather because I think if we don't ask our work to grow, we are doing a bad job.
Yeah, and part of my grade is always based on what is Marvel as a company doing with these things. That grade favors House of Harkness, because even though I'm not really clear what you would do having created this world, I like the world, and I hope that it does get used again. I hope it gets a universe designation, and I hope we meet some of these characters in the multiverse. We haven't done an Exiles in forever. I would love the Exiles to wind up in this world at some point. This is a cool group of people. I really like it, and I wish Marvel also was doing an Elseworlds type of thing. I wish they were being more clear about the fact that they wanted to tell stories that are not in the main Marvel universe and never will be, and just are here for fun. We're just so used to the alternate universes mattering in Marvel, that they're gonna come up again, that they're going to cross over, that there's going to be incursions. So sometimes it can be a little tough, but House of Harkness is just a lark in another world. Totally great. Anthony Oliveira is writing like a lot of stuff isn't happening. And Marvel is publishing it, and I blame them, not him. Because they are the ones who get the scripts and get the pitches and say like, yeah, go for it. But like, I don't feel as though the world in the Avengers by Jed MacKay is a world in which this team can exist. That Avengers team can barely hold anything together. They're at all times hanging on by a string. They're not really cohering. That Carol is running an entire Avengers Academy, and it never comes up. Also, that they have a thing called the Impossible City, and the Academy isn't in the Impossible City. Insane to me, just wild to me. Such an easy change to make that, like, you know, again, I don't blame Anthony Oliveira, because probably when he was pitching this, he didn't really know that that was happening. And like, maybe, you know, anyway, similarly, like with the world that the X-Men are in, Bobby just like being there to teach accounting.
Basketball special classes actually made me angry. What a terrible way to teach children to engage. Throw somebody into danger.
There's just a lot that I'm like, I love the world that you imagine this is taking place in, but it's not the one that's being published right now. So it kind of just, it hurt the overall enjoyment of the book for me right now, just like it's hurting my overall enjoyment of all books. Don't love the status quo, and then when I get a book that I do kind of enjoy, it pulls it down a little bit. But yeah, you know, I'm in a similar zone. I think for me, it's kind of B+ for House of Harkness, maybe B- for Avengers Academy. Yeah.
Well, then that's a pretty good time for us to keep on rolling through the amazing selection of books we have for ourselves today. No, I said amazing selection of books, I guess. So I guess I have to own that. Crypt of Shadows sucked. That was literally one of my least favorite experiences of the comic year. No story went anywhere. In fact, I even felt like they should have been scrolling. I should have gotten one on Friday of last week, one Saturday, one Sunday, one Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday. Like, these were not worth $4.99. This cover was garbage because it said nothing about what was inside. This has got to stop. I feel like my money is being taken.
Yeah, I have to agree with that entirely. You know, first thing I noticed, especially when this was announced, and I tweeted about this, not a single woman writing, one woman in all of the major credits, one artist. But other than that, it's just kind of nothing. You know, these were fine. Like, they're fine, I guess. I don't know. I don't feel like they matter. I don't feel like, you know, I don't know what anybody is doing here. And again, this is like, did editors come to you and say, hey, we're doing this. Do you want to just throw me any story that you have? Or like, does Ben Percy think this is a important Namor or Man-Thing story? Because it's literally just a story about how Man-Thing gave everyone an STI. Which, okay, the idea that Man-Thing is not eaten by mosquitoes constantly as a swamp-dwelling humanoid is insane to, like, I would not, as an editor, I could not have let that pitch fly. I would have said, like, you have to do something else. I'm sorry, but this won't work. But then ultimately it's just like, yeah, he gave everybody pustules, and then Namor got mad at him, and then he stopped. And that's not a story. Like, the Vision and Scarlet Witch one was, I guess, a full beginning, middle, and end, has conflict story. It felt like it could have just gone in the back of a Scarlet Witch issue. I don't know. What is Crypt of Shadows? What is the point of this? Like, we just release this once a year in October because.
I just want to temporarily break in for 1 second.
Please.
Hey, viewer, you know who you are. Right, that was my best Agatha wink. Right?
It was a little more Lucille than it was Agatha, but I admire
Jean!
Yeah, and you know, she got around, so get it. Good for.
Well, you out there watching, I do think you are quite a wonder boy. So anyway, I'm frustrated because Crypt of Shadows gives us an opportunity to do something that I, as a writer, am always eager to do. I want to take characters that have nothing horror about them, and I want to put them in horror scenarios. I want to take characters that are so beyond the scope of horror and see what you can do with them in that in that world and that tag. And I think one of the things that had me the most thrown off about Crypt of Shadows, did you see what they recommended as see the darker side of Marvel on the last page? Saladin Ahmed's Daredevil? Oh, okay. Well, Touched by an Angel was also very, very edgy. So,
well, and I mean, like, you know, we talked about doing Moon Knight, and I said I just didn't feel like it made sense for this week because it's not really spooky. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it's Moon Knight, like it's fine, but and what's really funny to me is it ends on this note where she's like, I gotta go figure out what my my ward is up to. And then it's like, see her in, and then it says Scarlet Witch, which she's in, which is fine, but she's also one of the new champions, which like is more relevant in every way because it also has a Ghost Rider. It's more relevant in every way than Moon Knight or Daredevil. Like Spirits of Vengeance, yes, absolutely should be in there. But then, like, you guys have other books. Like, you also have Werewolf by Night. Like, I don't know. The darker side of Marvel is definitely not, to me, Moon Knight or Daredevil. Daredevil is a great book, but it doesn't represent horror at all. If anything, it's right now it's the Divine Comedy, which is, I mean, like, horrifying to me. But you know, I don't know. It's just I don't know.
And it's sort of in that same vein that I'm maybe like not, I don't know. For as much as I'm going to give Crypt of Shadows like a C- D+, I'm a guy who is not necessarily entranced by the oldest version of a character. You can't tell me that because Jack Russell was the first Werewolf by Night, he's the best Werewolf by Night. You know, we had Jake Ryan, who was so cool and so hot and so exciting. And where I'm really confused is I read Blood Hunt Werewolf by Night #1 by Jason Lowe, who would then go on to write Werewolf by Night by Jason Lowe. But they feature two different Werewolf by Nights, and the end of the Blood Hunt story sets Jake possibly up as the villain. And then he hasn't shown up yet. And I'm feeling a way about telling somebody as talented as Jason Lowe that he should write Werewolf by Night because it's a title. Is it a title or is it a character? Spirits of Vengeance is a title. Ghost Rider is a character. And Werewolf by Night is a character. Werewolves are a trope. So, like, I'm not sure what's going on here. That said, the book is fine. It's not Jason's best work. It's not horror's best work. It's a good B, but this is not the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page. It's really funny. You mentioned Werewolf by Night Blood Hunt, and I was like, did I read that? And I had to go pull it up really quickly because I did read it. And that is weird. Because yeah, like what are we doing here? Or is every werewolf a werewolf by night? You know, like if two mutants have ice power, let's do one that actually happened. If two guys have fire powers and they both go by pyro, I feel like we get used to it with the X-Men. But like also it's, I don't know. Werewolf by Night feels like too specific a title for there to be two werewolves by night. Like, give me a book called The Lycanthropes and then give Jake another name. I don't know. And then I mean, like, yeah, the Werewolf by Night is cool. It's got Elsa Bloodstone. It's fine. I just again, I don't know what we're doing. It's a red band title, so it's like, oh, there's extra gore. We've got that dude from the Mackie Ghost Rider run, which I do think is fun.
Death Watch,
thank you. Is he a mobster or is he a demon?
It's both.
Who could say? I know it's both.
It's as 1993 as it gets.
I know.
It's not what I want.
Can you imagine you crawl yourself out of the depths of hell and you're just like a generic Melrose Place character with a mask on?
I mean, Thomas Calabro has done a whole lot with exactly what you've just described. I'm telling you, I literally.
Well, to be fair, he is not generic.
No, I was about to say,
He's top tier.
Seriously, I genuinely realized as like a 13-year-old watching Melrose Place. Oh, look at Thomas Calabro's butt. I'm a top. Oh, okay. And so, but speaking of people who crawled out of the depths of hell and are just generic, yeah, Death Watch is something.
I don't know. I mean, like, you know, I live for a 90s reference and I live for a 90s Ghost Rider reference, so I was tickled. But then, of course, we get the Hood, and this is another case where, like, Jason probably was not told that the Hood would literally just have been unpossessed by Zarathos. So that never comes up.
Okay, so I don't want to be a little too spoilery, but did everybody else get kind of thrown off by that very enticing, very well put together Marvel 2025, the only 2025 project I'm excited about, reel that has an unbelievably hot guy as the Hood, and I'm very excited. But
the teaser trailer for the MCU for 2025. Yeah.
So what's really weird for me is it aired when I started Agatha, and then really quickly I was not touching any device. Really quickly it cut off, and it like scrambled and cut off, and I was like, maybe I wasn't supposed to see that. And then the next day I discovered that it was actually a real thing. So the only thing I really saw was my boy Wilson and my boy Matt just on the streets. So I'm excited about that.
You know, when you're on Instagram and you've been following a chubby bear for 5 or 6 years, and then one day he just shows up and he is so trend out that he no longer has blood. Everything inside is just dry and cracked. The cough is intense, right? The trend cough, right? I'm having a really hard time looking at Vincent D'Onofrio and not being like, yeah, your face is skinny. It's a fat suit. And like, I'm good with it because that, for me, is always Kingpin. Kingpin is that much muscle, but like, it does not look fluid. This will not be one of those shows you watch the revival directly on the heels and go, well, no time has passed at all. Like, you will be like, oh, okay. Somebody found the Ozempic journey. And let me tell you, Vincent D'Onofrio did not go on the Ozempic journey. Vincent D'Onofrio is a character actor who gained weight to be able to play Kingpin better. I'm really proud that he put his body and health and mind and sanity and family first and said, I will not get fat again. I will wear a fat suit as a guy who sometimes is like, yeah, nah, it's fun to be fat. And will gain 40 pounds for no reason and then spend 6 months fixing it. I understand the draw to transforming your body, but yikes, good for him. But you know, the whole reason I brought this up, this trailer really also had that clip of Wonder Man. It had clips of Ironheart. There is so much coming our way after this horror season. I'm really excited. Same time, I do kind of wonder where Werewolf by Night is in that, because what a great one shot. What, you know, Patti LuPone's character needs to meet Harriet Sansom Harris's character, and they need to just sort of do the ladies who lunge.
Yes, we also need Man-Thing back in the mix. We had a great Elsa Blood. Honestly, like, I love Gal Garcia Bernal, and I would love to see him back as Jack Russell. But we also have another person that can be Werewolf by Night, as discussed here. And we have all this other stuff. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much more that we can do. And I really thought after that Werewolf by Night, we would get more one-shots, more just 45-minute special features. And I wish we would.
I'm kind of still hoping that we do, and I think us vocalizing that that's what we'd like to see will be a huge element of that, because something to remember about the upcoming Marvel trailer for next year is for all the stuff that it mentioned. there's major projects that it had no reference to, really.
Yeah.
Or at least limited. I don't remember seeing anything for Thunderbolts or Fantastic Four. And if there was, it was like a quick card, but there's not much for those. So I really hope that we do start seeing stuff like that, because you can't know we're going to want it until you introduce something like Agatha and the characters they introduced. And now we want to see more from Jennifer Kale. So, you know, I really agree, though. I love those one-shots. I feel like the thing is, you don't have to worry about doing too much Marvel. It's just do it smarter. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, there's only one other book that I think is really necessary to discuss at the spooky season, as we are discussing the bigger picture of Marvel. And it's sort of weird because it's not being published right now the way I would expect. When I talk about things at Marvel that represent like fear and horror, one of the things that I really love is Dark Avengers. I love Dark Avengers as this idea, this Thunderbolts sort of idea. And I'm very surprised that we have not started doing Dark Avengers Halloween one-shots. Something that takes a group of people, or maybe like Anthony Oliveira, again, you are a genius, you are affable, you are talented, you are incredibly handsome. You don't need to make Carol say damn every sentence to show us that she's tough. But, you know, Moonstone parading around as Carol on Halloween night. Oh my God. Anthony Oliveira writing Moonstone parading around as Carol on Halloween night in a book called Dark Avengers Get Revenge. I mean, that's the book. 2025. It's me, him, and you. It's the team. KEVO's coloring it. He's co-writing. It's a very exciting experience. We're doing it. But like,
Man,
right? I feel like not using Dark X-Men, Dark Avengers, and not using these dark titles or even the superior equivalents at the holidays, like Halloween or even April Fool's Day, is sort of like a missed note.
It's also like when I saw that we were doing a Vision Scarlet Witch story, it's the thing that you were saying, like that story would have been really cool if the Vision was having the scary dark horror fantasy experience, because we expect the witch to be in a witch in a horror story. Like that's just part of it. But for the Vision to do it, and for it maybe to become a body horror story, or you know, a cosmic horror story, that would be a real flipping of the scripts. Or you know, like I don't know. There's any number of ways to do it, but where's Nightmare? Where's Nightmare?
Okay, so I had this whole theory that a character on a TV show that might have just ended was going to be revealed to be Kid Nightmare, and then he wasn't, which was fine. Yeah. But when they then had Kid Nightmare running around
Agatha, House of Harkness.
House of Harkness, I perhaps felt in that moment like the smartest, wisest man who's ever lived. I felt very good about my understanding of comics.
Yeah.
That all said, you know, Marvel's horror offers this year maybe felt a little bit like not what I was looking for. You know, it's The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Like, it's 80% law movie and 20% horror movie. And that's kind of how I felt about Marvel's Halloween this year. It kind of felt like 80% Marvel, 20% Halloween. Crypt of Shadows was genuinely terrible. I truly believe the Jason Lowe story was a holdover that he used to get Werewolf by Night. I truly believe it was a holdover. I don't believe that was written for this, because if it was, Jason, you know, we've gotten to know him a little bit. Like we love him as a creator. He is already, in my mind, such a brilliant visionary, but then it would add this layer of being able to create a zeitgeist in his mind and going back to this exact moment in storytelling. And like, it has to be a holdover in some capacity. Otherwise, they commissioned the wrong story.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I guess that's enough of it's weird because, like, I don't know. I can't even come up with an example for it, but like, imagine still loving something that you walked. I guess that's me in the Boy Scouts in some ways. Like I will never go back to scouting, but like a lot of my greatest memories are becoming a first class scout. Like that's a lot of my greatest memories, like from childhood. But scouting for me is forever ruined by the organization and the people. So I feel a little bit like that's kind of Marvel for me these days. It's the house that raised. I feel like Snoop. Like I grew up and I'm like, one label was the label that paid me. And then 15 years later, I'm going to jump ship and I'm going to say the exact same line, but I'm going to change the label that pays me. And it's not that Marvel can't make me happy anymore, but it's that Marvel is publishing a universe that makes me happy and issues that don't. DC is publishing a universe that's fine, I guess. It's so what everybody else has ripped off and done better. Mark Waid's Irredeemable is a better version of the DC universe. But God, the issues at DC, with the exception of this week, which had absolutely my 4 least favorite issues of DC our entire time covering it. Absolutely. DC is just more fun.
I do agree that DC is more fun. I feel like DC had more fun with Halloween. I agree these are not in my top. I will say DC Horror Presents had 2 fantastic stories and was 26 pages long. 13 and 13, Done and Done. A good Wonder Woman story, and now I'm blanking on the other one, but it was also good.
Oh, wait, the Wonder Woman story? Okay. Kevo, honey pot.
That's me.
Okay. So, for many years, Kevo has listened to me talk about an artist that I grew up. I grew up in metal, and it's so tough because I don't know that I grew up loving metal. I grew up in metal. I don't know that I don't know. So for the last 20 years, Kevo has heard me referring to digging through the ditches and burning through the witches, all of whom slam into the back of my Dragula.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then we start watching Dragula, which, by the way, fuck you one more time. That is literally one of the best nu metal songs. Like, if nu metal deserves to be a genre, Dragula is one of the singles.
Yeah.
That is the worst theme song compared to the existing song, but let me tell you how much I love that theme song. The Boulay brothers writing that fucking Wonder Woman story.
Yeah, that's fun.
There are no characters. It is just a zombie story featuring Amazons.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that your drag could be a little bit better if you did the following things. Listen, Hunty, I'm a cunt. Like, the Boulay brothers are... The Boulay brothers writing that Wonder Woman story made my entire Halloween. Good night, the episode's over.
I was so tickled by that.
I, by the way, give the story a B-. It's an okay story.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. There's nothing amazing about it. They literally are just like, oh, somebody got murdered. Oh, it's your mom. We got to throw her back into hell. I got to stab you, but then you got to help me. Okay, good. I couldn't help but notice that the piercing of Donna Troy had some real parallels to the first episode of Dragula.
Guys, I peed myself. Oh my God, I peed myself. They put the bugs in my mouth and I peed myself.
Now that would have been a great way to continue that.
That's going to make a great short.
Yep. Mark it. I also thought the Dollhouse story was really, really fun. Like, that's a horror story. That's like a horror myth, that she is this like passionate woman who brings her boyfriend back to life because love conquers all. And then of course it turns out that he was dumping her. And she's of course a horrible monster because she's the daughter of a supervillain. I don't know. It was really good. So I had a lot of fun. Again, 2 stories, clean, simple, one and done, DC Horror Presents, I really do give that a B plus, maybe even an A-. That might have been the best one of the Halloween take, just because simple, got it done, good art, good storytelling, spooky, fun, crank it out, give it to me in October, let's call it good. In contrast, I don't understand a single thing that happened, and I Know What You Did Last Crisis, which, because of the name, and I apologize, I chose that one and I pushed for that one. Should have read it more closely before I did that. I really thought because of that title, because of the release time, it would be a little bit more of like a play on classic, 90s teen horror movie tropes or something. It's really just kind of like a weird, this is what side characters were doing during big DC events. That's like vaguely, slightly horror tinged.
So, what do you do when you are dating someone and you bring them over for your family's annual end of fall ultimate capture the flag competition where people
you do
travel?
not know the Carews at all.
Oh my God. So when your family has an ultimate capture the flag competition at the end of every summer to signal and fall, for which family will travel sometimes as much as 5 and 6 hours to come for the game, and you introduce your boyfriend to this, and he becomes so competitive, he slides in the dirt and slams his head so hard into the foundation of your house, he cracks the concrete. That is how I felt it must have been for you, trying to keep up with the amount of crisis. I love the joke they're making here, because I agree with you. When you suggested this, I was like, oh, this is a great fit. But what I hadn't realized was that they were trying to do a double joke. When people do the Love Actually cards, but they don't make it romantic, they're trying to do the double joke. They want the cards to mean something, but they're trying to lose the romance. I Know What You Did Last Crisis wants the fear, but loses the horror. And I'm with you. How would you feel if they released a Marvel book called I Know What You Did Last Secret Wars? And it showed us what America Chavez was doing as an 8-year-old, learning her powers during Onslaught. And it showed us, now that is my favorite book of all time. And that is the only book I want.
Book. Yeah.
But these stories...
But if you released it in October and called it that, I would be like, you're a jerk. Because I think it's a really cool concept. But again, I got so lost in, wikiing, because this was deep lore.
Even I actually have a couple of notes that are I've read literally every page of this crossover, and this must be referencing stuff that came after the crossover. It must be referencing earlier work like this.
Yeah.
Because I read every page of that, and this never happened.
Yeah. So this was just unfortunately a total miss for me in terms of I just couldn't understand anything. And again, DC Horror Presents, I don't know doll maker at all, but I know the dad. I know that it's puppet master, puppet maker. I mean I know that character from Batman the Animated Series. It's so simple, you can pick it up. It's no problem. I get that Dollhouse is a character that already exists who I had never seen before. I don't know anything about her mental state or what I would take away from her, but you get it all in that one issue. Similarly, I know Donna and I know Wonder Woman, but I don't really know anything. I don't know enough about the mascara or anything to necessarily get any other references, but didn't need them. And the Boulet brothers clearly have not read a ton of Wonder Woman, so it's fine. And so this coming out at the same time, I Know What You Did Last Crisis coming out at the same time, I really was I'm going in for some silly fun. And no, it's a deep lore book that I guess the Banshee story felt kind of horror. And there were a couple other, but even I'm not really even clear if this was meant to be a Halloween book at all.
I agree. I actually think that the marketing on this title was a disaster.
Yeah.
I think this should have been 160 pages, and
Yeah.
it should have been called like the pages between crises, and it
Yeah.
should have like, because this really was only for people who really care, and like, I don't know that I have all of the wherewithal to do a Marvel Universe one of these. I think I have the wherewithal to do an X-Men one, to do an Avengers one, but a Fantastic Four of this, I know what you did last Fantastic Four crossover, and you show us what Herbie and Franklin and Valeria were doing during each previous Fantastic Four crossover, lost on me. And that is how I felt about a lot of this. Even as someone who's read 9 out of, there were 8 crossovers. I've read 7 out of the 8 crossovers here, and I felt lost.
Yep. And I just kind of, I knew it would be like, I really was like, I bet even Nico does not know all this stuff. But I knew for me, I was like, I don't know any of this stuff. Also, like, again, when you say it's Batgirl in 1985, so she's 60 now?
Can you not give us a QR code where we can scan and get a basic wiki of who this character is supposed to be? What iteration in 1985 are you telling me? Because in 1985, there were 3 Batgirls. Which one is it, Abe? So, you know what book I didn't understand a single panel of, but I thought was like probably my book of the week? I don't know what happened in a single page of Creature Commandos.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. I'm okay. Good.
I've read a bunch of Creature Commandos because when Sean Gunn's weird brother said that he was going to make a movie about it, I was like, all right, Kirk found the eggs. Maybe they'll find the Creature Commandos. I can do this. And I read, because I am DC Platinum Unlimited Infinite Mega fan, and they have my social security number, and they charge me $1 million a week so that I can read books 2 weeks after they come out. Thanks, guys. So I went through and I looked at all the Creature Commandos, and I am telling you right now, you know when you have a really good friend who's a really good writer, and then right before they wrote that script, they did a lot of cocaine? I'm talking to him. I'm kidding.
No, you're not wrong.
Hey, it's happened. I'm just saying. But the problem here is, I think it went to print, and I don't know what I read, but I walked away with the best vibe. Like, so there's an artist that I don't think enough people appreciate, and I don't want to like wade into some territory that I don't know that maybe she's actually secretly said she would eat a baby, but I'm like super obsessed with Ray, musician Ray, and I got super into her with The Line and like her like silly fun pop music, but like, so now she's a fucking genius and getting nominated for like jazz Grammys and like is the thing. And sometimes I put on Genesis, and when I listen to it, I'm like, this isn't music. She's literally having a mental breakdown on a recording, and she wants me to clap. Can I clap? Do I clap? This is, do you, I don't know. Do you clap when the dog chews on the brick? I don't know what to do. And like, the vibe is so powerful. I need her to win every one of those Grammys. That's how I feel about this book. Truly, like, I don't know that I appreciate the art for the artistry. I appreciate the art for the way that I don't think a single panel flows into the next panel in any way at all. I literally don't think this book makes sense page to page. But my God, I read it twice. I had such a good time. I read it twice. So I don't know. This is one of those things where like, I didn't understand the return the first time I saw it. So maybe this is just a giant cricket crawling into a lady's mouth when she's 16.
It do feel like that. I mean, like, you know, yeah, you nailed it. I really had no idea what was happening, but the vibes were immaculate. You know, there is a thing. It's a great thing. I know it's not just an American pastime, but something about it does feel uniquely American. Which is funny because the stories are almost always set in Victorian England. But if you put a walking constructed man, a thing that drinks blood, a thing that turns vaguely lupine, and then you get a wild card creature. Your fourth one is a gimme. You can pick whatever you want. Sometimes it's an angel. Sometimes it's a demon. In this case, it's a gorgon. Maybe it's going to be a minotaur. You got options. You can pick. We love it. We'll take it.
It's a Doulahan that can take off its own head and suck its own dick. Anything can happen.
There you go. Whatever you want, you get to choose. That fourth one is for you. You measure that with your heart. We will take that. That is Penny Dreadful. That is, oh God, there's another one. God, I only had one example locked in, but it's a thing we love. We love that combination of characters. And but a big part of it is because it is well-worn territory that is public domain. Frankenstein's, Dracula's, and werewolves, fully public domain. Anybody can use them, but we all know Greek mythology, also public domain. So I got immediately what they were doing. And then, but it's also of course there are other creature commandos. So it's always some kind of reboot, retcon, remake. Vincent Velcro can't be any funnier in modern storytelling parlance. Is it Vincent Velcro the vampire? Come on. I mean, what are we doing here? Please.
I mean, you never know. He might be from Nibelheim and his mom might have.
So this is all to promote a TV show that I was going to watch anyway. And okay, now I'm really seated.
Is it in a movie?
Is it? Hold on.
I thought it was a movie.
I got you. TV series.
Which one?
Creature Commandos.
Oh, I don't know that.
Yeah, I mean,
TV
I gotta
series.
be honest. Part of why I don't care quite as much is because isn't it animated?
Yeah, it gets animation.
Yeah, and so part of where I sometimes check out just a little bit is when you ask me to jump into a product that I'm not familiar with, and you're saying to me, by the way, it's going to be in a form you're not familiar with it in, right? Part of what has always made DC somewhere I feel safe is I stick to my four corners of the DC universe. It's either got to be Batman, a Lantern, Vertigo. I even need to say specifically John Constantine because I won't necessarily read Sandman or Books of Magic. There is really no corner of the DC universe I know quite as well as those four things. So one of the things that made Crisis, Creature Commandos, DC Horror Presents a little difficult was I felt like I didn't have a bearing, and it made me think about, well, why didn't they put the Hal Jordan story that they had designed for DC Horror in number one? Is Hal Jordan really a number one seller? Is he really the opening act? No, he's probably not. Okay, so he's in issue number 4. Issue number 4 comes out in January. I have to be honest, the only thing that is really scary in January is who I had sex with on the 31st. So I am not sure how far these horror stories are going to continue to, let's go with, relapse our fear during the coldest months. And now when I'm cold, I think I'm going to die. I have panic disorder, which means certain things set off my anxiety and my physical not being so easy. Reading a spooky story in January, yeah, it shuts down my immune system. It's spooky, but I don't know that is the publishing schedule design. So do I love that the Boulay brothers got to be the prime story or one of the prime stories in this issue? Yes. Do I love that, as you pointed out, the Dollhouse story was spectacular? Yeah, but the more I think about it, was there really a horror story here? Or were there two stories featuring characters who lent themselves to fear? And did we not get a Dead Man, a John Constantine, a Zatanna? Did we not get someone whose name means fear this issue? Because it's October, so this one's going to sell no matter what. November, December, and January need characters who actually have fear instilled in them. Batman, Green Lantern because of things like Black Lantern and Black Hand. I'm very curious to see if that was why they chose these stories, other than the fact that I would, in fact, devour the smaller Boulay brother whole. The little one is so cute.
I know, I don't disagree. I'm right there with you.
Drac sounds like Brack. I am
Yeah.
Ghost. I am telling you right now. And I just keep expecting the other one to sit there and be like, listen, Space Ghost, I don't know what you're thinking. And I'm, of course, Space Ghost. And I'm sitting there like, well, I'm in this suit. And it leaves very little to the imagination. Ha 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 ha. Next guest. It's all I can think every episode of Dragula. I'm barely kidding. They really do look like Brack and Zorak to me. It's really tough.
So then am I Moltar?
I've waited for you forever. Man, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Space Ghost Coast to Coast really did. Yeah, that's why I
Life changing. Every day, the Bjork and Tom York episode plays fully in my head at all times. I'm a knifing around.
Okay, that reference is why when you didn't know Based in Blood a week ago, I was almost like, have I ever truly loved you right? That you didn't know Cinder Calhoun?
Fair.
I've done a bad job being your little bro.
Very fair.
Anyway, speaking of things that have done a bad job, the preview.
No,
pages,
it was fun.
No,
it was fun.
No, the
Okay,
preview pages were great. The full issue was boring.
It was a little boring, but it was. So we're talking about Batman Full Moon.
The ugliest John Constantine has looked since the Tories were in office.
The characterization of the art was stylized by someone who feels that humans are in general ugly. I don't think it was limited to just.
One sec. Listen, you message me later. You, Kev, you can pick on me later. Message me. Please continue.
This is a guy whose style is what if hot people were ugly, and that's okay. I like that. This is a spooky world where Bruce Wayne can't get it together with Zatanna, whose boyfriend John Constantine shows up in the middle of the date. I don't know. I thought it was fun. I thought it was silly. I thought it was stupid. I was hoping it would be a one shot. I don't necessarily have gas in the tank for more of this, but Man-Bat fighting a werewolf is funny. I don't know, like, again, like, if you tell me there's a werewolf and a were-bat, Man-Bat in it, it's October, I'm okay, sure. And then you give me some vibey art, sure, I'm there, I'll do it. What I'll say is I feel like DC in all of these things gave me a lot more than Marvel gave me for the season, good or bad. And Halloween is one of those things where it's like a bunch of bad stories for Halloween. It can be fun, even if you would prefer a bunch of good stories.
You know, one of the things that I am most aware of is that Marvel and DC are trying so hard to think out what is going to give them number one sales, but then what's going to give them number two sales never seems to be quite the same experience of expectation, or I don't know, maybe even practice. Number one sales are a value that allows you to protect your idea. When a number one sells really well, we put that on a big banner, on a big billboard. Oh, wow, sold out number one. Whoever brags about sold out number twos? And I feel like something that Last Crisis tried to do, that Full Moon also tried to do, and maybe even DC Horror Presents, we'll see. DC Horror Presents tempted us with an idea at Halloween, but come New Year's, what's going to be the case? I kind of feel the same way about things like maybe even Full Moon. You know, as Shakira once said, this is lycanthropy. So perhaps the idea of the full moon, the idea of the werewolf, is bigger than Halloween itself. You know, February is a big time for horror movies too, but that's because it's burn-off season. I find myself worrying about the idea of comics, that comics is convinced that Halloween starts October 1st and ends October 31st. We're going to Fright Fest tomorrow, which, you know, for those of you who are not theme park aficionados, sorry about it, but Fright Fest means that we are going to Six Flags. We're going to be going to Great Adventure. There are some unbelievable, and that was just me being silly about the fact that our channel has covered a number of theme park Halloween offerings. In Disney, it's Not So Scary. At Universal, it's Halloween Horror Nights. It is Halloween Screams at King's Dominion, I think. So we're going to Great Adventure, Fright Fest tomorrow. For me, fear is like an experience. It's a period of time, and like Halloween starts Halloween starts August 31st. That like last bonfire should have like a goblin at it, or like a scary killer man, but like, you know, a magical one, so nobody actually has to die. And so one of the things that frustrates me is it does feel like the books that are designed to cause fear at Halloween don't really mean anything when they end. I'm frustrated that I feel like Batman Full Moon was designed to create a moment and not a title. If this was meant to be a title, it should have started in August and end in December. But instead, it feels like it was just meant to be a number one, and nobody cares about 2, 3, or 4. That doesn't feel fair to the creative team. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm walking away from this Halloween season hoping for better from the holiday season. And just to kind of start with that, and not to jump the gun, but the fact that Marvel has at least one variant cover already available that features a non-Christian interpretation of winter holidays, showing Kitty Pryde celebrating Hanukkah. Thank you. Because where was my Dia de los Muertos cover? Where was anything that wasn't just put on a spooky costume? Where was like somebody being like, no, you know, Mexican revistas often come up around now, and it's an important point of cultural celebration. Like, where were the other interpretations of fear, of Halloween, of horror? I feel like everybody just sort of went for a really obvious move and didn't think about how it would play out across the landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Like in the case of DC, I'm even kind of okay with it because they just put out so much that at least like I felt like we got to honor the spirit of the season throughout the season, because they started releasing these the first week of October. So yeah, I agree. I'd like it to go a little longer, and I think you make a really good case for, like, I would rather Full Moon have been one issue and just one and done. But if it's not going to be that, then you're right. It should start earlier and sort of hit its climax towards the end of October. But like, I don't know. I want to see them go for it a little bit more, even if it like, you know, obviously in a perfect world, I'd like editorial to get its shit together and like really have some exacting standards for scary stories. And, you know, even if it's just one Crypt of Shadows book and one DC Horror Presents, have them be just excellent. But otherwise, I would take even more, just make it actually relevant to the season. You both have so much access to material that is, you know, again, just the public domain stuff alone that is horror that you both have access to is enough to stoke the season. But you also have so many cool characters that you can use, and you have so many tropes that you can play around with characters that aren't necessarily horror by design. But like, you know, when was the last time somebody cribbed Buffy's Helpless? A truly great horror story where a superhero loses their powers and has to fight for their life without them. Go ahead and copy it. Just do it again. Pick anybody.
Well, but just to kind of, it's tough because I don't want to give him any credit.
Yeah.
It's tough because I myself am a gentleman who appreciates the identities of horror throughout history. I am not beholden to one identity of horror the way Joss Whedon was always so excited to explore multiple ideas on Buffy. Obviously, the man himself, terrible, but let's just stop talking about Age of Ultron. But part of where I am frustrated is because think about how The Gentleman featured so many beautiful elements of multiple cultures' interpretations of fear. These metal teeth, this idea of being replaced in an unnatural way. Silence, the idea that not sharing your experience makes you an outsider. The paleness, the idea that the pallor of death makes you fearsome. The suits, the idea that being one of many makes you exactly the same. The floating, the idea that the unnaturalism is so palpable. There's just so many levels on which they said
juxtaposition between the gentlemen and their henchmen, where they were these floating, composed businessmen versus these men in straitjackets who were these hulking, brutish things, and very gentle and high.
To even that point, KEVO, what a great way to put it. Think about the way that Buffy herself moves. Think about the way that Xander, Willow, Giles all exchange ideas. It's this mania. It's this physicality that is certainly the opposite of the gentleman. So even when the gentlemen aren't fighting their physical and intellectual opposites by virtue of they are fighting somebody who is emotional, somebody who is so driven by passion, they're surrounded, as KEVO pointed out, by their we could say it like they're gimps, right? They're surrounded by their sexy gimps. And it's just so important to think about the fact that, like, yeah, that's part of why we talked about Emplate at the top of this episode, because Emplate represented this beautiful idea, taking so many levels of fear and combining them into one entity and making him so strong. This mutant with like giant tubes coming out of himself, who's a vampire, who's a sorcerer, who is a dark negative universe version of himself. So many incredible, clever ideas came together. And that's sort of what I'm talking about with the gentleman here. And when we go back to things like Batman Full Moon, the first thing I think is, okay, how does this generic kind of like vampire switch in for the werewolf make Batman better? Okay, well, I don't know that the werewolf makes Batman better. Okay, how does it make Man-Bat better? Well, I don't know that it makes Man-Bat better. Okay, how does this help me understand the bigger picture of the story? It doesn't. Okay, well, how did the gentleman help me understand Buffy the Slayer better? And it's that level of asking myself how this will make me think about the future. Will House of Harkness make me question my understanding of the Marvel Universe? Probably not. Will Anthony Oliveira's vision for Marvel Voices help me to understand better 10 years from now what I think about characters that I have loved since I'm a child, like Hazmat and Metal? Oh, for sure. Will it help me to think about characters like Emplate in new ways? Probably not. But then again, I didn't really need somebody to write the Diary of Anne Frank from the perspective of the Babadook. And so I find myself thinking really critically about what stoked my fear this horror. I think what stoked my fear this horror was the idea that our heroes and our villains are in stories that we don't expect. Like Dollhouse secretly being like, no, I'm bringing you back from the dead to kill you again. Or maybe even the charm of Scarlet Witch being like, the scariest thing about my life is going to school. Like, there is something about not knowing where fear is coming from where I was not afraid of Batman Full Moon. Yeah, okay, I guess I'm walking away from this Halloween being glad that I was surprised, like, by whatever the current generation's voting trends are. I'm surprised. Okay, cool. I don't always agree, but I'm surprised. Cool. I don't know. I'm walking away B plus-ish, B-ish, B. I'm going to save the plus for you because you're so handsome. And I'm going to give this week a B. But how about you?
Well, I was going to say, I hope you're not saving it for me to give it, because I will be keeping it for myself. I think B, we're in the right zone.
Oh, okay. He doesn't think I deserve a plus. You all heard it here first.
Well, then we're just giving it back and forth. That's just disingenuous. Then we might even be in B- territory. This was not great. And again, it's more like the season, man. Like, get into the season. Give me seasonal stuff. Give me Halloween stuff. Where I ask you, where was Hallows' Eve? She's in the pages of Chasm Curse of Cain, but I'm not going to read that. I'm sorry. No, I am going to read it. But no, it's not a spooky season book. It's just
I've read
weird.
it.
Yeah, it's not a Halloween book, and they certainly weren't marketing it as one. So that no, but like you literally have a character named Hallows' Eve. Where's her fucking special?
Can I ask you a weird question that feels like I'm coming for a specific writer, but I'm not?
Yeah.
I don't know what Steve Fox sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea what Steve Fox sounds like. I know what Steve Fox sounds like channeling the next iteration of a story that he was asked to pick up on from a previous writer. So I know what Steve Fox sounds like finishing someone else's story. But as someone who's read the first 3 issues of Curse of Cain, I don't get a book yet. No. I don't think they're giving this man the room to develop his stories. I think as much as we're saying that some of these books feel incomplete, I feel like at many points they're telling these writers to leave them incomplete so that the next person can start running with it, because, Jason Aaron, Ben Percy, Mark Waid, these people who did these definitive runs on these characters like Wolverine, Ghost Rider, and Daredevil did it by picking up the threads that were left by excellent writers before them. And I think one of the things we're seeing is editorial telling people to leave in unfinished ends, and it's not giving me the same thing it did when I was excited, thinking like, oh man, what if Death Watch appears when I'm 40? Like, it's not the same excitement. I'm not looking forward to what happens when Squid Kid appears when I'm 70. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's Marvel really loves to, I hate this expression, but have its cake and eat it too when it comes to creatives, in terms of they really want them to bring their personalities and their social media presence and whatever they bring to fandom into the PR aspect of writing. But oftentimes they don't want them to bring their voice into writing. They want the writing to be just house style, and they want the writers to be able to hang. And it results in something that just doesn't necessarily do justice to the talent and interesting voices that we have available to us. And I think that comes up at times like this, where it's like, I think you want to let people off the leash on Halloween. I think you want to let everybody dress as the sluttiest mouse they have in their closet, and you want them to write like the sluttiest mouse they have in their closet. And having them write just like, whatever, just like, it's got a werewolf in it, so do your thing. We're publishing this Ben Reilly book, so that's where Hallows' Eve is, rather than just like having a little fun with it and letting people play around and getting a little sandboxy. I think that's what Halloween is for. It's for, your vision for the costume, and then you try and make it, and sometimes you look really dumb, but you have fun, and you go to the party, and like your writing should be similar too. You're going to try your best, you're going to throw some stuff out there, and some of it's going to be really dumb, but you're going to have fun. It's going to be part of the party. And instead we just got this kind of like polished rock. Like, it wasn't even like a gemstone that like got polished to beautiful facets. It's just like, those people that get on TikTok and their whole thing is they have 1 billion rock tumblers from National Geographic in their house, and they just like get rocks and tumble them, and then they pull them out and they're like, can you believe that it's shiny now because I let it it'd be in the Tumblr for a month. That's what a lot of these books felt like. It's just like, can you believe that I just like wrote a book and said it was scary, and so this is a Halloween book now?
As a guy who started a comic book podcast because I was like, can you believe how many comic books I own? Oh God. So Kevo, as our personal Gelman, I just want to be clear that as the Kathy Lee of this situation, I am here to harass Zac Efron.
Yeah, you are. That's Jonah.
Hoda is running from me as we speak.
You're going to show up on someone else's show with curlers. Go ahead.
It's really, I am the ultimate Canadian curler, and I cannot wait until we come back to talk about things like the amazing finale of Agatha, that unbelievable trailer for what's coming in 2025 for Marvel over on Disney Plus, and more. But one of the things that has been so exciting for us in the last couple of weeks is we talked a lot about gargoyles, and I know that this is a comic broadcast, so I would just love to give gargoyles a little wink wink nudge nudge over here in a comic universe. So Kevo, what should everybody know about gargoyles at Halloween and comics?
They have both a Halloween episode and 2 different Halloween comic specials, both from the Slave Labor Graphics run and from the Dynamite run. I actually should, maybe I'll catch up and I'll read the Halloween special with Nash, Brooklyn's son. Yes, that's how far Gargoyles canon has come. Brooklyn has a son. There was time travel involved, so don't worry about it. I'm also super stoked to talk about Agatha some more. I rewatched the entire show yesterday in anticipation of the finale because I, was working, didn't have much else to do. Really pleasant. I'm really excited for what's to come. So I'm stoked to talk about that. Also, make sure to check out our channel for a whole bunch of other kooky Halloween offering. We did a broadcast last year where we came up with a cumulative 72 hours of Halloween marathon suggestions. So that was a lot of fun. We also have stuff like our Villains Showdown, where we have villains go head to head. And of course, Nico's music over on Nico Action Music. We've been listening to your iteration of Ballad of the Witch's Road, which I made a cool music video for over on your channel, along with a awesome compilation of kooky, spooky, Halloween-themed party themes. So go check all of that out over on Nico Action Music. And I'm looking forward to entering the next holiday season, which I know for TK's purposes is Thanksgiving specifically. We're not going to surpass... I don't reject Thanksgiving. I just feel like Thanksgiving is just the opening of Christmas. And it doesn't really have enough music on its own anyway. So you might as well just start listening to Christmas music. But we're going to give it a little bit of room to breathe. Like Nico said, we're going to go to Fright Fest, so maybe we'll post from stuff from there. Who knows? And until then, you can find me over on the socials at KEVO Really. That's KEVOREALLY.
Kevo, one of the things that I think is so incredible is that even when you have no idea what the topic is, you produce the show, you sit there, you wear your arc reactor, you're super excited, you're ready to play the game, and I just want to thank you so much for putting on the costume and being a Marvel zombie, as it were.
There's also hidden second stuff. Oh, love it. Also, thank you to whoever is literally giving reactions in the YouTube chat right now. I always keep it open so that I can say dumb stuff in the chat for myself, like earlier when I pointed out this Easter egg that's been going on in the background of this whole episode. Has everyone noticed the dancing skeleton in the background the entire broadcast? You'll be able to see it when I pop out. His head is a little bit covered by the bottom of you two guys, but you can see him in between you two. So
I see the swirling pumpkin. Sure.
Yes, it's like he's conjuring a pumpkin ghost tornado, I guess. So happy Halloween, everyone.
Well, I could not be more excited than to spend Halloween with these two guys, two of the best people I've ever known. So, Kevy, thank you so much for letting us know where we can find you, what's up with you, and for sharing your production with us. Thank you, Spoop.
You're welcome. I'm the skeleton. It was me all along. Not.
Well, if I am Prince Adam, my Skeletor is directly to my right. And I could not be more excited than to have the opportunity to talk about these episodes with him. He is someone that I think so highly of, especially when I'm spooked out. So, TK, what has been your favorite spooky thing this year, comic or otherwise, and where can everybody find you online?
Favorite spooky thing? Oh, God, this hasn't been the spookiest season for me. My really spooky thing is I'm away from home right now, and I turned all the lights off in one of the hallways that has a security camera in it. And sometimes I check on it, and every time I get really scared because the hallway looks really dark and foreboding, and I'm just scared I'm going to look and there's going to be somebody moving through the hallway, even though the whole house is locked up. So every time I look at it, I have a very like jump scare ready feeling. And that's just the kind of person I am. That's the kind of spook I'm living in my life right now. Also, Magnus Archives, Magnus Protocols, scary podcasts. That's what I have. I have 1,000,001 scary podcasts. Malevolent, another absolute banger that I know you've started listening to. Scary podcasts. That's what I got.
You know, I think that people often underestimate the value of being afraid in different mediums. It has always been one of my biggest frustrations that like people often let themselves feel limited by what they find scary. I remember seeing Saw in the theater the day it came out. Me and the gentleman I referred to as Wonder Boy earlier, hey, thanks for tuning in earlier, went to Saw that night because he understood what a big horror guy I am and how hard it was for me that like everybody was talking about this movie and I had no interest in it. And we went to Saw the night it came out, and it was a good spooky time, but he like literally apologized to me. He was like, "You weren't scared once." And I was like, "No, I really, really wasn't." And he was like, how are you doing? And like, what makes you scared then if this movie that everybody is saying is the scariest thing in the universe isn't scary to you? What is scary? And for me, I think fear has to do with who you wish you weren't. Anybody can be scared. Anybody can be made afraid by the things that are common fears. I don't mind clowns. I'm a big Pagliacci guy, but I do find myself pretty freaked out when there is a clown just standing on the side of the Garden State Parkway, waving at me. That's fucking freaky. So when you're thinking about what makes things scary, what makes fear, I think the scariest things are the things in your own head. When I wake up at 4 a.m, the things that frighten me aren't demons that haven't crawled out from under the bed yet. They're the fact that I might have left a knife by the bed and might stab myself in the chest. And have no idea because I'm two people. It's the things that I don't realize. And one of the things that I am the proudest of in my entire life as a comic book creator is I had the opportunity to write 4 pages of pure fear in the form of Kid Riot Sand. And I wrote 4 pages that really represent what make me afraid. What if someone you love is someone else? And I've read my own story a few times this year, and people think that maybe sounds kind of like cocky, but it's not about feeling like what I wrote was so great. It's about feeling like what I hate that I sound like Draco. That's so terrible. It's about feeling like what I wrote is genuinely my understanding of fear. And for myself and my sake, I personally think if you want to know what makes me scared, you should check out Kid Riot Sand. It's 4 pages. I think we've listed the 6-page version, which is just a cool cover and a cool back cover. Definitely give it a chance. You are more afraid of who you are than you are afraid of what is out there. And I think that's kind of what Crypt of Shadows didn't give me. It's what maybe Voices gave me. It's what maybe House of Harkness gave me. It's what even Creature Commandos gave me. It is this idea that the scariest thing is who we are, not who we aren't. And I couldn't be more excited than to share that with all of you. And if you want to check me out and my music, this awesome theme running in the background, KEVO did such an amazing job rendering this theme and a number of other themes. So go check me out at Nico Action Music. That's NicoActionMusic. If you want to check me out, that's NicoAction. It's so hard to think about how to spell my name without music. But if you want to check us out, that is, of course, at X is for Show, X is for Podcast, HTML, that's Husbands Talking More or Less, and more. We love bringing you guys X-Men, Drag Race, music, and everything in between. We definitely have some big seasons coming up. I would really like to do like a Thanksgiving marathon. I know we kind of did, but I am at all times Courtney Cox dancing with a turkey on my head. So I am always ready to be big Thanksgiving feels.
I am still constantly going to pitch more live watches, so I would be willing to do a live watch of whatever Thanksgiving thing that TK would like to choose. So I'm committing my end on air. So I'm open to Thanksgiving content, is what I'm saying. I am not Christmas miser.
I love turkey on Thanksgiving.
We'll do a cover of You're Bathed in the Blood. How about that?
Basted in Blood is the
Basted in
greatest
Blood,
Thanksgiving song of all time. TK, on air, I am challenging you to write a Kid Riot Thanksgiving story on air.
Ooh. Oh, okay. I would color that in a heartbeat. Oh, I think I might do it in like warm hues.
Oh my god, I can't stop thinking about it,
Some,
Kevin.
like, pops of like green and ooh, interesting.
I am so lucky that when I think about things that make me happy, I think about fear, and I think about a team that supports that love. So if you want to check me out at Nico Action, NicoAction. I know I already said that, but can't say it enough. If you want to check out the show, that is X is for Show, XISFORSHOW. I've never tried to spell that before. God, it's hard.
You did so good.
Dude, I thought about it, and it is not in alphabetical order. So thank you all for supporting me. But anyway, number 1, like. Number 2, comment. Number 3, subscribe. That is 3 things that every channel asks you for, but 3 things that not every channel asks you for. Number 1, stay safe. It's a scary world out there. We've got an election coming up. If you are in the US, please do your best to vote for the people that you know in your life that are the weakest, the people that you know in your life who need the most love and the most help. Please, please, please put your support behind somebody who can take care of those people and who won't leave them behind because they don't earn $1 billion. But beyond that, number 2, stay safe. Number 3, evolve daily. Great. Oh no, it's stay safe, be brave, evolve daily. I got there. Great. Who you were yesterday, amazing. Who you are today, we love it. Who you are tomorrow, that's the dream. So we can't wait to see you then. TK has been so patient. KEVO has produced so much. Let's sign this motherfucker off. Good night.